My name is Ellen Victoria. I'm 30 years old, and 2 months before my wedding, my boyfriend asked to take a romantic weekend with his ex for closure. It was a small kitchen, the kind where the refrigerator hum feels like a clock counting down. I had just dried the last plate and set it upright to breathe. Owen leaned against the counter, twisting the dish towel I'd left there. His eyes had that polished sincerity I used to call present. Later, I learned to call it rehearsed. "Babe," he said softly, like he was about to break a cruel truth to a child. "We need to talk." I turned, bracing my back against the counter, palms flat, the laminate cool beneath my skin. "I'm listening." "It's about Lila," he said, and dropped the name like a pebble into a well, waiting for the echo. Lila, the ex-girlfriend who ghosted the edges of every story he told about his 20s. 5 years with her. An entire chapter he insisted was closed, but somehow never quite shut. "I can't step into our future without closing my past properly," he went on. She reached out. "We both feel like we need a real goodbye. One last trip, just a weekend. We'd go back to that little mountain town we used to visit, talk, reminisce, end that chapter the right way so I can come back 100% yours. Don't you see? This is for us." He said it like a blessing. He said it like a gift I should be grateful to accept. My mind didn't race. It aligned. People think clarity is a lightning strike. For me, it's a blueprint snapping into place. I'm not an engineer by trade, but I plan like one. Load, stress, failure points, margins. I'd been watching hairline fractures for weeks, the silenced screens, late nights at work that smelled like cologne I didn't buy, a new password on his tablet. There's a difference between a squeak in the floor and rot in the joists. Lila wasn't a squeak. "What does a real goodbye look like?" I asked, sweet as steam. "Just a weekend," he repeated, rushing. "Back Sunday night. I already requested the time off. We'd just talk." His smile tried to pass as humble. "This is for us, Ellen." He thought I'd fight him. He wanted me to. Anger would have given him footing, something to push against. When men ask for absolution, they often expect a performance. Tears, theatrics, the speech about boundaries. They rehearse their lines around that explosion. So I smiled, calm, accepting, a silk ribbon around a grenade. "Of course," I said. "Your emotional clarity matters to me. If that's what you need, you should do it." Relief poured off him, so heavy I could almost hear it splash. His shoulders dropped. He beamed like he'd threaded a needle in a storm. "I knew you'd understand." He crossed to me and hugged me. His heart pounded quick against my cheek. Not guilt, anticipation. "You're the best." "When do you leave?" I asked into his shoulder. "Friday morning, back Sunday." "Have fun getting your closure," I said, and released him. He left the kitchen, already texting. Probably the good news. I stayed where I was, the plate rack and the humming fridge and the tiny sting of lemon soap at my cuticles. There's a sound a house makes when a storm is rolling in. You don't hear it as much as feel it. The air compresses. The walls listen. Our engagement was over. The wedding was a costume we hadn't taken off yet. He just didn't know it. I didn't sleep that night. Not because of grief. Grief needs a body to bury. I was past that. What I felt was precision. I pulled up the spreadsheet with our vendors, contracts, deposit schedules, contingency clauses. The venue, a historic estate with ribs of oak and windows that learned light, had a cancellation penalty that stung. The caterer did not. The florist would transfer deposits to events of equal scope. I made my notes. Morning poured over the sink. Owen whistled in the shower like a man who'd been told he was brave. I started with phase 1, financial separation. Our joint wedding account was healthy. I'd contributed roughly 80%. Closing it outright would ping his phone the way a smoke alarm wakes a house. I made an appointment with the branch manager instead, the kind with a private room and a ficus dying bravely in a corner. We drafted the paperwork to remove my name and return my documented contribution to a new private account. Processing Friday afternoon, the hour after his car left our driveway. Phase 2, vendor neutralization. I called the venue and paid a small fee to shift our booking to a corporate gala 3 months out. I did the same with the caterer, the florist, the band. It wasn't cancellation, it was transfiguration. Deposits stayed afloat, just no longer tethered to my life. The photographer was the only thing I cut clean. There are some things you don't want preserved. Phase 3, intelligence. There's truth, and then there's proof. Proof carries weight when families arrive with scripts and tears. I hired a PI, Frank, a retired detective whose face looked mapped by long roads and hard coffee. I gave him Lila's name, a photo, and the mountain town Owen had breathily pitched as sacred. Time-stamped, I said. Inarguable. He nodded the way men nod around inevitabilities. That night, Owen draped an arm around me on the couch and asked if I'd be okay without him for the weekend. I nested into him and said the words he wanted to hear. I'm proud of you for doing the hard thing. He kissed my hair and turned back to the TV, and I found myself counting the beats of his pulse at my wrist, like a metronome for departure. On Thursday, I met with Diana, my lawyer. Sharp suit, sharper eyes. Because Owen had moved into my house last year, his name wasn't on the deed. Tenant at will, she said, sliding a draft across the table, crisp as a fresh bill. 30 days, airtight. Friday at 7:18 a.m., Owen wheeled out a small suitcase and kissed me at the door. I'll call you tonight. Take all the time you need, I said, and watched his taillights vanish between two maple trees that will outlive us both. The house exhaled. I didn't. I drove to the bank and signed the final papers. I called the credit card company and reported my card, the one he was an authorized user on, as compromised. Reissue, I said. No drama, just closure of a different kind. At 6:43 p.m., Frank texted the first photo. The Whispering Pines Inn, their check-in desk varnished to a shine. Owen and Lila, not beside each other, but leaning into each other, soft and practiced, the way bodies remember. Their hands overlapped on the counter, a tiny cathedral of fingers. The timestamp might as well have been a chisel. I saved the image to a folder titled Closure. By Saturday afternoon, my living room looked like a packing diagram. Half the shelves were empty, the other half sorted into boxes with his name in tidy block letters. Not rage, not pettiness, erasure as an ethic. The only trace of him by dusk was a neat grid in the garage. Books, clothes, a row of mugs I never liked. More photos rolled in. A hike. His arm looped around her waist on a ridge, the sky doing that indifferent blue that makes people feel small. A dinner. Wine glasses bowing to candlelight. And later, through the fogged edge of a lodge window, their kiss in front of a stone fireplace. Frank was good. The lens was cruel. Sunday, 4:00 p.m., I opened a fresh project on my laptop and laid a black screen like a field. Title card. Closure. I placed each photo with the care of laying out instruments on a sterile tray. I added a piano track that moved like water over stone. Gentle, relentless. The last frame was their room service bill. 2 champagnes, couples massage. The cursor blinked like a pulse. I let it blink. At 6:02 p.m., Owen pulled into the driveway. He stepped out glowing, the way people glow when they've fed something hungry. I'm back, he sang. I have so much clarity. This was the best thing for us. I'm glad, I said, meeting him on the porch. He reached for me. I took a small step back and placed Diana's envelope in his hand. Welcome home. His smile stalled. He unfolded the first page, the formal notice about his status in my home. What is this? He asked, the tone pivoting from incredulous to managerial, as if this were a meeting he could steer. Read the second page, I said. He did. Ellen, stop. This is... What are you even talking about? We just talked. Did you enjoy the couple's massage at Whispering Pines? I asked, gentle as a scalpel. Was the champagne good? He flinched, a tiny animal movement in the face. The lie arrived on schedule. You're being paranoid, he said. We just talked. I didn't argue. I took out my phone and held up the first photo. Check-in desk, fingers overlapped like a habit. He went very still. Your things are in the garage, I said. You have 30 days. He opened his mouth to bargain, to rage, to charm. Whatever he chose, I didn't hear it. I had one last call to make. His mother, Carol, was throwing us a grand engagement luncheon the following Saturday. Balloons, florals, 75 guests, a toast that would make strangers cry. I dialed the event planner instead. Hi, it's Ellen Victoria. I have a surprise tribute I'd love to play for Owen during the luncheon. Could we arrange for a projector and screen? It's a secret. She loved it. Of course she did. I emailed the file name that night. Closure MP4. Owen texted once more before midnight. Everyone will expect you there. Don't embarrass yourself. I turned the phone face down on the nightstand. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that isn't lonely, just clean. There's a peculiar peace in knowing the truth will arrive on time, like a train already barreling through the dark, its whistle inevitable. Next Saturday, the lights would dim, and the room would learn what closure really costs. When revenge is deliberate, it doesn't burn, it calculates. For 6 days, I became what Owen always accused me of being: too composed, too rational, too still. He mistook stillness for surrender. That was his first mistake. By Monday, the town was buzzing about our upcoming engagement luncheon. Carol, his mother, was already posting countdown stories on social media. "So proud of these two lovebirds," she wrote beneath a photo of Owen and me from last fall. The comments were a small universe of congratulations and heart emojis. I stared at them for a long time, finger hovering over the delete button. Then I smiled. No, let her build the stage. I'd just rewrite the script. Phase 1. Containment. Tuesday morning, I stopped by the bank again. The paperwork for the transfer had gone through without alert. My new private account balance reflected my exact contribution down to the cent. The clerk, a kind man named Martin, smiled as he handed me the receipt. "Big wedding coming up, right?" he asked. I met his eyes. Something like that. Next, I turned to the vendors. My laptop had become a control panel. One window for the florist, one for the venue, another for catering. I called each one, calm, friendly, professional. "We're rescheduling our date," I told the coordinator. "There's been a change in timing, but we still want you on board." Every confirmation felt like tightening a bolt. Owen's wedding was still on, at least on paper. But in reality, every deposit, every contract, every timeline had been rerouted under my control. He just didn't know the train was heading off a cliff. By noon, I'd rebranded the entire event series under a corporate name, Victoria Consulting Group. My assistant manager title from my actual job gave me enough credibility to make it look real. I had a new email signature, a new contact line, even a generic logo I mocked up in Canva. I wasn't canceling our wedding. I was erasing it and leaving the illusion intact long enough to hang him by it. Phase 2. Intelligence. That evening, Frank, the private investigator, sent another message. "They've settled in, spa appointments, couples dinner, room service twice, photos incoming." Attached were 4 images. The first, Owen's hand on the small of Lila's back as they stood by a bonfire, her head tipped up toward his shoulder. The second, the two of them in white robes, champagne flutes in hand, sitting on a balcony that overlooked pine trees. I zoomed in until the pixel lines blurred their smiles into static. Frank's efficiency impressed me, but it was the timestamp that mattered. Friday, 7:46 p.m., the exact moment I'd signed my bank forms. He had been opening champagne while I was closing accounts. Perfect symmetry. "Good work," I texted back. "Keep documenting. No confrontation, just facts." Phase 3. Legal precision. Wednesday afternoon, I met Diana again in her office. She was the kind of woman who wore steel gray suits and red lipstick like they were armor. "How's our favorite homewrecker?" she asked dryly, sliding a stack of papers across the desk. "Busy," I said, almost finished with the cleanup. The documents were airtight. Eviction notice, financial dissolution acknowledgement, and one more thing, a legal draft ending our engagement based on irreconcilable breaches of trust. It wasn't a divorce. It was cleaner, quieter, but legally binding enough to prevent him from claiming anything if he tried. "Serve him Friday night?" she asked. "No," I said. "Sunday, after his trip." She looked up, smirking. "Poetic." "Strategic," I corrected. The performance. Thursday and Friday became an act of theater. Owen packed. I helped. He talked about the trip with that self-satisfied confidence that men wear like a cologne, a blend of ego and ignorance. "I just need to do this right," he said, folding his shirts like a martyr. "Of course," I replied. "You've always been good at doing what feels right." He didn't notice my tone. He was too busy rehearsing his speech about emotional honesty. Before he left, I slipped $200 in cash into his hand. "For gas and snacks," I told him. He kissed me like a man receiving permission to sin. "You're the most understanding woman I've ever known." I smiled. "You'll understand me soon enough." When his car pulled out of the driveway, I turned off the porch light. By the time it flicked back on, he'd be a memory. The weekend. Friday evening was a symphony of motions. I visited the bank to finalize the transfers. Then I called the credit card company. Report lost card, I said. Deactivate all authorized users. They apologized for the inconvenience. I told them not to worry. At 8:11 p.m., Frank sent another photo. The Whispering Pines Inn. Room key in hand. Owen's arm around Lila's waist, both laughing as if the world owed them peace. By midnight, I had the entire photo sequence imported into my editing software. Building the evidence. Saturday morning smelled like burnt coffee and quiet revenge. I spent hours editing the footage with an almost sacred calm. Black background, white text, closure. Then, image by image, the kiss by the fireplace, the intertwined hands at check-in, the balcony champagne, the dinner under candlelight. Each photo faded into the next with slow dissolves, underscored by the melancholy of a piano piece I found royalty-free online. At the end, a simple image, their room service bill, the line item reading couples massage, romantic add-on, followed by the total. The piano ended on a single unresolved note. I exported the file, closure MP4. The homecoming. Sunday evening, the house smelled of lemon polish and victory, boxes stacked neatly in the garage. Every trace of him gone from the bedroom, even the faint dent in his side of the mattress seemed to have risen overnight. At 6:02 p.m., his headlights cut across the driveway. He stepped out, looking refreshed. A man who believed indulgence was therapy. "I'm back," he announced brightly. "I feel like I've finally made peace with everything. It was exactly what I needed." I stood on the porch, calm, a glass of iced tea sweating in my hand. "Good," I said. "Then you're ready for your next step." He grinned, but it faltered when I handed him the envelope. "Welcome home," I added softly. He opened the first page. His smile froze. "What is this?" "Page 2, I said. He flipped it, his face drained of color. "Ellen, come on, you're overreacting. We talked, that's all." "Was the champagne good?" I asked. "Or did you prefer the massage?" The lie came quickly. "You're paranoid." I lifted my phone and showed him the picture. The bonfire, the kiss, the timestamp. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscle twitch. "Your things are in the garage," I said. "You have 30 days. He stepped forward, desperate. "You can't just— we have a luncheon next week. My family—" "I know," I said, meeting his eyes with surgical calm. "I'm counting on it." He stared at me, realizing too late that this wasn't rage. It was execution. I closed the door, turned the lock, and watched his reflection fade from the glass. That night, I called Susan, the event planner. "Hi," I said sweetly. "It's Ellen Victoria. I have a surprise video for Owen's luncheon. Could you arrange a projector setup?" "Of course," she chirped. "How romantic." "Exactly," I murmured. "He'll never forget it." I slept like a child, not because I was at peace, but because I'd done the math. Every wire connected, every fuse lit, every outcome accounted for. By Saturday, the truth would play itself, and no one, not even Owen, could stop it. By Friday, the city was already shimmering under early summer heat, the kind of day that made people restless, hopeful even, perfect for pretending. Carol had called twice that morning, her voice syrupy but strained. "Ellen, sweetheart, I just wanted to make sure you'll be at the luncheon tomorrow. Everyone's expecting you. It's going to be such a special day." I could practically hear her smile stretching through the phone line, brittle as glass. "Wouldn't miss it," I told her. She exhaled like she'd dodged a bullet. "Wonderful. You two have had your little rough patch, but love always wins in the end." "Always," I echoed, smiling into the silence. When we hung up, I opened my laptop one last time. The file was there, still and ready. Closure MP4, 4 minutes and 38 seconds long. 4 minutes that would outlast every year Owen had spent weaving his stories. The calm before. Friday night was quiet. No calls from Owen, no apology texts, just digital silence. I wondered if he was stewing, or if Carol had managed to convince him that showing up together, smiling, coordinated, would salvage appearances. He didn't understand that appearances were exactly what I planned to weaponize. I packed my bag deliberately. Neutral dress, modest makeup, hair pinned back. No vengeance in sight, only composure. People underestimate calm women. They expect tears, yelling, cracked mascara. but stillness terrifies in ways screaming never can. Before bed, I replayed the video once more. I didn't cry. I didn't even blink. I only adjusted the fade between the last photo and the black screen by half a second. Timing matters in everything, especially humiliation. The luncheon. Saturday, noon sharp. The Hillside Country Club gleamed like a shrine to pretense. Soft music, fresh peonies, servers in white gloves, a banner stretched across the room. Congratulations, Owen and Ellen. Love forever. I had to bite back a laugh. Forever had expired a week ago. When I entered, all heads turned. People whispered, smiled, nudged. Carol hurried over, clutching her pearls, as if gratitude might spill from them. "Oh, darling, you look radiant. He's going to be so happy you came." "Wouldn't miss it," I repeated, and hugged her lightly. Her perfume was too sweet. Everything about her was. At the far end of the room, Owen stood in a light gray suit, performing ease. He saw me, and for a fleeting second, relief crossed his face. He thought this was forgiveness. Good. Let him believe that until the lights went down. He crossed the room, hands outstretched. "Ellen, hey, I'm glad you came." "I told your mom I would." He shifted awkwardly. "Look, about last week, I tilted my head, smiling like someone who'd already moved on. "Let's not do this here. Today's about celebration, right?" That line saved him. He latched onto it like a drowning man to driftwood. The pianist began to play. Guests filled their seats. Glasses clinked. Cameras flashed. Owen sat beside me, his hand inching toward mine. I let it hover there, just close enough to make him believe we were whole again. The speech. Carol tapped the mic at the front of the room. "Good afternoon, everyone." Her voice carried that bright, brittle cheer that comes from denial layered over desperation. She gushed about her son, his resilience, his charm, his unwavering heart. Then she looked at me. "And Ellen, my dear, the light of his life, the woman who taught him what true love means." The audience applauded. I smiled politely, even as my jaw ached from restraint. Carol's closing words rang in my ears. "This is a celebration of forgiveness, of growth, and of new beginnings. We're so proud of these two for finding their way back to each other." 10 minutes later, right on cue, the lights dimmed. The reveal. A hush fell over the room. The event planner's voice echoed faintly from the back. "Everyone, please enjoy a special surprise prepared by Ellen herself." I watched Owen's head snap toward me, confusion flickering. "You made something?" I folded my hands in my lap. "You'll see." The screen descended from the ceiling. The projector hummed to life. The first frame appeared, a smiling photo of us on our engagement day, golden hour catching in my hair, his hand around my waist. A soft piano began to play, the melody tender, familiar. Guests murmured in admiration. Carol dabbed at her eyes. Then came the next slide. Black screen, white text, closure. The first image after that, Owen and Lila checking into the Whispering Pines Inn, fingers interlocked. The air shifted instantly. Whispers, a collective gasp. The slideshow continued. Owen and Lila drinking wine in matching robes, Owen tracing a fingertip along her shoulder, Lila leaning in, lips brushing his neck, and finally the photo of their kiss, lit by the fire, time-stamped in the bottom corner. The music didn't falter. The melody kept flowing, calm, mournful, merciless. Carol shot to her feet. "Turn that off! Turn it off!" she shouted toward the back of the room. But the technician, young, nervous, $500 richer, stayed perfectly still. The final frame appeared, their room service bill, with couples massage, romantic add-on, circled in red. The piano ended on a low, unresolved note, followed by silence. For 30 full seconds, no one spoke. Then someone near the back let out a stunned, breathy laugh, ugly and sharp. It broke the spell. Guests started shifting in their seats, murmuring. A woman stood and whispered something to her husband. Chairs scraped against tile. Within a minute, the exodus began. Friends, co-workers, distant cousins, everyone desperate to escape the wreckage of someone else's truth. Carol looked frozen. Owen sat beside me, jaw slack, pale as paper. He turned to me, voice breaking. "What have you done?" I met his eyes. "Exactly what you asked for, Owen. Closure." I stood, smoothed my dress, and walked toward the exit as the lights came back on. Behind me, the room dissolved into chaos. Carol shouting, servers rushing, phones flashing like lightning. Outside, the sun was blinding. It felt warm, clean, almost new. I didn't look back. That night, my phone buzzed with calls, first from Carol, then from Owen, then from an unknown number that I knew belonged to Lila. I didn't answer a single one, but the texts poured in. You ruined me. You're sick. You'll regret this. Maybe, but regret requires doubt, and I had none left to give. I poured myself a glass of wine and replayed the video one last time. There's something almost holy about watching truth play itself out. Stillness returned to the house. This time, it didn't feel like waiting. It felt like peace. There's a strange quiet that follows public ruin. It's not satisfaction exactly, more like silence after thunder. The world doesn't collapse dramatically. It just keeps turning, one notch colder. The morning after the luncheon, my phone was already vibrating before I even opened my eyes. 21 missed calls, 7 voicemails, half from Carol, half from unknown numbers that I didn't need to guess. I brewed coffee, opened the curtains, and let sunlight fill the room where Owen's things used to sit. His empty shelf looked like a missing tooth. I didn't touch my phone until the second cup was half gone. Then I listened. Carol first. Ellen, I don't know what you think you've done, but this was cruel. You humiliated him and me and our whole family. You'll regret this when people turn on you, when they see you for what you really are. Delete. Then Owen. You didn't have to do that. You could have talked to me like an adult. You destroyed everything for both of us. You think people are going to side with you? You're delusional. Delete. Then silence. Then, finally, one voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Hi, this is Frank. Thought you'd want to know. The photos got around fast. Local papers are sniffing around, but I kept your name out of it. Also, side note, the woman, Lila, she's married. Her husband saw the footage online. I don't think Owen saw that coming. I smiled faintly. No, I murmured. He never did see far ahead. The fallout. By Monday, word had spread. The bridal shower scandal. That's what people were calling it online. Someone from the luncheon had filmed part of the reveal, a shaky 15-second clip of the moment the word closure appeared on the screen, followed by the image of Owen and Lila holding hands. It had already been reposted dozens of times. The comment section was merciless. Can't believe she thought no one would find out. He deserved that. Iconic level of petty. Closure MP4 deserves an Oscar. I didn't respond, didn't repost, didn't comment. Revenge isn't real if you need applause. Meanwhile, Owen's perfect image, the charming, dependable fiancé, the family man in training, began to fracture. His company placed him on leave, pending internal review. Carol, who had once lived for neighborhood brunches, stopped showing her face in town. As for Lila, she vanished from social media entirely. Word spread that her husband had filed for divorce and was moving out. It wasn't chaos I wanted, just consequence. The final visit. 3 weeks later, Owen came by the house. He didn't knock at first. I saw his reflection in the glass. Thinner, older, all the pretense drained away. Then came the faint, embarrassed knock. I opened the door but didn't invite him in. He looked down at the porch, then up at me. You ruined my life. I tilted my head slightly. No, Owen, you ruined it. I just developed the photos. His jaw tightened. You think you're better than me now? I thought for a long second before answering. No, just smarter. He let out a bitter laugh. You planned this whole thing, didn't you? You smiled in my face while you were setting me up. I gave you every chance to be honest, I said evenly. You chose a lie with candlelight and champagne. His hands balled into fists, then fell uselessly at his sides. You'll never move on from this. You'll always be the woman who exposed a cheater, I cut in, voice sharp as glass. I can live with that. He stared at me for a long moment, eyes full of something between hate and admiration. Then he turned, muttered something under his breath, and walked down the steps. He didn't look back. I watched him go, the sound of his footsteps fading into the distance. That was the last time I ever saw him in person. The mirror. Months passed. The noise died down. The story became legend, retold, exaggerated, reinterpreted by people who weren't there. Closure MP4 became an inside joke on local gossip boards, a cautionary tale at wedding parties, and, to some, an anthem. But for me, it wasn't about the spectacle, it was about reflection. Revenge wasn't the goal, understanding was. I had spent months trying to build a future on top of a man whose foundation was already cracked. When he confessed his closure trip, I realized something painful but liberating. Some people don't grow through truth. They only grow through loss. I poured one last glass of wine and watched the sunset from my porch, the same place I'd stood when I handed him the eviction notice. The sky was burning pink and gold, and the wind carried that faint, electric smell that comes before rain. I whispered, not to anyone but the air, "Closure isn't found, it's created." Epilogue. A month later, an email arrived from an unfamiliar sender. Subject line, Whispering Pines Incident. It was a journalist. "Hi, Ellen. I'm working on a feature about accountability in modern relationships. I've heard whispers about your story and would love to get your side of things. Off the record, if you prefer." I read it twice, then deleted it without replying. The story didn't belong to me anymore. It belonged to everyone who needed to see it and understand the quiet power of consequence. I closed my laptop and glanced around the house. Clean, peaceful, honest. My home again. People talk about revenge like it's a fire you feed. But in truth, it's more like architecture. You dismantle the lie, brick by brick, until what's left is space. Empty, quiet, free. I poured another cup of coffee, looked out the window, and smiled. He wanted closure, so I gave it to him.